am Ankh-Sutekh. You will not find my name carved on steles, nor hear my voice in the hymns of the temples, for they have erased me, buried me in dust, as if I had never existed. But I am still here. I am the sand. I am the wind. I am the darkness. And if you listen, you will hear my story. The story of a bastard son, rejected by the Pharaoh, forsaken by the gods, but chosen by Seth, the Lord of Chaos. My mother was a slave girl in the palace. She was young and beautiful, with large, lustrous dark eyes and a voice like a harp strummed under the moonlight. The Pharaoh, the sovereign of all Egypt, the one they call the Son of Ra, summoned her to his chambers for a single night. That night, her status changed, and from that night, my destiny began. When she became pregnant, the Pharaoh did not acknowledge it. A pharaoh could not have a child with a slave girl. The throne was reserved for the great royal wife and the princes born of a divinely blessed marriage. As for me, I was but a foul tumor upon his honor. I was born in darkness on the outskirts of Thebes with no gold, no title. People called me by many names. The bastard, the one rejected by Ra, and most cruelly of all, the son of Seth. When I heard that, I did not cry. I listened, because I knew Seth truly heard me. Since I was a child, I had dreams. In my dreams, I saw a colossal serpent with eyes red as blood, slithering around the pyramids. I heard the wind blowing across the desert, but within the wind, there was a voice calling, Ankh-Sutekh. Other children played under the sun, while I sat alone on the sand whispering back to the unseen voice. They mocked me, threw stones at me, saying I talked to demons. They were not wrong. But they did not know. It was the demons who listened to me when both Ra and Osiris had turned their backs. At night I saw the moonlight shine upon the sand. I reached out my hand and the sand moved. Not much, just a few small grains, but it trembled beneath my hand. At that moment I understood. Seth had chosen me. When I was 12, I was brought to the temple of Ra to serve as a cleaner. Everyone thought it was a mockery to let the bastard son smell the incense, but never touch the sacred texts. One day, during a great ceremony, the high priest misread the invocation. No one dared to correct him for fear of offending the gods, but I, a boy who swept the floors, uttered the correct words. The entire temple fell silent. They did not know whether to fear me or revere me. From then on, I was more than just a servant. I was taught hieroglyphs, studied the scriptures, and learned to read the omens in the stars. I remembered every word after reading it only once. And I knew it was not memory. It was the mark of Seth. During a ceremony in Memphis, the Pharaoh, my father, was present. I stood in the back, just a minor assistant. When the aging high priest faltered, I stepped forward and recited the invocation in his place. The entire ceremony was saved. The Pharaoh looked at me. For just a moment, his gaze swept over me, full of curiosity. Perhaps in my eyes, he recognized something familiar. These eyes, this forehead, this blood. But he turned away without a word. Even so, I was kept at the palace. From a cleaner, I became a sorcerer in charge of omens and rituals. Closer to the throne than ever, yet still denied. One time, as I prayed in the darkness, the desert wind blew fiercely and sand flew into the chamber, swirling around me into the shape of a serpent. I smiled. I understood it was a sign. From that day on, I swore an oath. If the throne is not given to me, I will seize it. If the light will not look upon me, I will live with the darkness. If the Pharaoh denies me, I will kill the son he loves, and let blood flood the throne. I am Ankh-Sutekh, of the Pharaoh's blood, but not a prince. I am the son of darkness, and the darkness will carry me to the throne. In the magnificent palace of Memphis, I was known as the Pharaoh's sorcerer, the eyes of the gods. But the truth was different. I was merely the eye of the darkness, a blade hidden within a golden sheath. They did not know, or did not want to know, that my mask of loyalty was but a veneer to conceal my hatred. After the ceremony in Memphis, I was kept at the palace as part of the royal sorcerers. At first, my duties were only to read the omens, transcribe the Pharaoh's dreams, and find their interpretations. But gradually, I was entrusted with more responsibilities. There were nights the Pharaoh dreamed of red blood flooding the Nile. When he awoke, the first person to be summoned was me. I would enter his chambers, sit by his bed, and recount the dream as if I had been there with him, and I would whisper, "Do not worry, Great One. It is merely a test of faith. Ra is testing you, but in the end, you will be the light that guides the people of Egypt." The Pharaoh would sigh in relief and smile. He trusted me. He even placed a hand on my shoulder, calling me a son of the court. I would bow my head, murmuring my thanks, feigning emotion, but inside I wanted to scream in his face. "A son of the court? I am a son of your blood, but you will never admit it." Not only dreams, but I was also tasked with preparing restorative herbal elixirs for the Pharaoh. In the court, everyone believed I had the hands of a god, that my touch could turn herbs into precious medicine. Every morning I offered the Pharaoh a cup of herbal wine, containing honey, fragrant resin, and crushed blue lotus. I would always say, "May your majesty drink this for a healthy body, so that Ra may smile upon your throne." The Pharaoh would smile and drink it all. I smiled too, a smile only I understood, because I knew one day, if I so wished, that cup of tonic would become a cup of poison. The Pharaoh loved to hear praise, I knew this. So I always offered him sweet words like honey poured into his ear. "You are Horus reborn. You are a light greater than the sun itself. When you speak, the Nile itself must slow its course to listen." He would laugh heartily, and the entire court would laugh with him. As for me, I mocked him in my heart. "You have the light, and I have the darkness. One day, I will make you kneel at my feet." By day, I was the loyal sorcerer. By night, I was a worshipper of Seth. In the light, I offered prayers for peace. In the darkness, I drew blood sigils on the chamber walls, chanting curses in an ancient tongue no one dared to speak. In the court, I knelt before the Pharaoh. In my heart, I knelt only before Seth. Sometimes I felt myself split in two. One Ankh-Sutekh in a white robe holding incense standing before the throne. Another Ankh-Sutekh in tattered black robes, holding a dagger, standing in the shadows, laughing at the credulity of men. In the court, there was only one person who unsettled me, Imhotep, the sorcerer of light. He was different from me. He was no bastard, not scorned, heard no whispers in the wind. He was respected, seen by the Pharaoh as his right hand. He always recited every scripture perfectly, and every time I intentionally mixed up a few words, he would correct them in front of everyone. Imhotep was born into a noble family, taught letters and scriptures from a young age. He was the kind of person the gods seemed to favor, righteous, upright, his face always as radiant as the sun. In the court, wherever he walked, people bowed. The Pharaoh considered him a kindred brother, sometimes even letting him sit beside him during important ceremonies. And me? I sat behind them, holding a scroll, recording every word he spoke, every omen he interpreted. I was the shadow, he was the light, and there was nothing I hated more. I remember that ceremony vividly. The Pharaoh had dreamed of the Nile changing color. I whispered that it was an omen of a shift in power, a vague insinuation, but Imhotep stood up and declared boldly, "No, Your Majesty, a red Nile is a trial from Ra. You must remain steadfast, for Ra is testing the Pharaoh's heart." Then he turned to me, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "Ankh-Sutekh, you have misinterpreted the omen. Ra never abandons Egypt, nor does he ever change his chosen." The entire court fell silent. All eyes turned to me. The Pharaoh frowned, and the officials whispered amongst themselves. I bowed my head, suppressed my anger, and feigned humility. "You are right, Imhotep. I am but a humble student. May Ra forgive my ignorance." He smiled, thinking he had taught me a lesson. But in my heart, I etched that humiliation deep into my soul. And I swore, one day I would make him taste it tenfold. Imhotep always proclaimed himself a man of Ra. But I knew, His light was merely a golden cloak on the outside. He was a man of flesh and blood, one who also trembled before death. During the ceremonies he would preach, Ra grants life to all. Osiris presides over a just death. Horus protects the throne. The common folk believed him implicitly. They looked up to him as if he were a living god. But I knew it was just a game of words. He used the gods to bind others. As for me, I do not use the gods. I use the darkness. And darkness doesn't need flowery words. Darkness only requires blood and truth. Another time, during the dawn ritual offering to Ra, I deliberately slowed my pace, dragging out the incantation to test his reaction. Imhotep strode forward, his voice firm. The invocation of Ra cannot be delayed. The sun waits for no one. The Pharaoh nodded, clapped him on the shoulder, then turned to me with a reproachful gaze. In that moment, I saw Imhotep smile, a smile of victory. I bowed in response, but inside I screamed, "You think you've won, Imhotep? You have the light, but I have the darkness. You have Ra, but I have Seth. And Seth has no need for a pharaoh's false smile." That night I returned to the tomb. I cut my hand, writing Imhotep's name in blood upon the stone. Then I called to Seth. "Hear me, O Lord of the desert. I offer you the soul of my enemy. Let me devour his light, crush it, and turn it to ash." The torch sputtered out, leaving only black smoke swirling around me. In the wind I heard laughter. Seth had heard me. I knew that to kill an enemy one must sometimes feign closeness. Therefore, in Imhotep's presence I always wore an amicable smile, calling him brother in the divine. I even shared invocations with him, pretending to ask for his guidance. He smiled, believing I had changed. But in my heart, I only wanted to plunge a dagger into his chest. I whispered to myself, "Keep believing it, Imhotep. The more you trust me, the more you will suffer, when you realize I am the one dragging you into the darkness." In the court, Imhotep was the light and I was the darkness. He had the faith of Ra. I had the power of Seth. He was trusted by the Pharaoh like a brother, while I was seen as a mere aid. But every light has its shadow, and I was that shadow, the shadow that would devour the light when the time came. I am Ankh-Sutekh. The light offends my eyes. One day I will make the sun go out in the skies of Egypt. No throne stands forever on light alone. Every throne has its cracks, and I am the one who slips through those cracks. I am not just the darkness. I am the blood of the Pharaoh, and blood will call to blood. In the court of Memphis, not everyone was loyal to the Pharaoh. There were those who wore a mask of loyalty just as I did, but inside held a bottomless greed. Horemheb, the old general, was resentful for not being granted supreme command. Rahotep, the tax collector, craved gold more than justice. Mentu, a minor priest, was jealous that Imhotep monopolized all the favor. I saw them and I knew. These were the pieces of rotten wood I needed to ignite the flame of rebellion. One night I invited them down to the secret tomb where I often prayed to Seth. The torches burned fitfully, their red light reflecting off the symbols on the walls. I stepped out, shedding the white robe of a royal sorcerer to reveal a scar in the shape of a serpent carved upon my chest. You want the throne to change? You want more gold, more power? Then listen to me. I am not just a sorcerer. I am of the Pharaoh's blood, his son. Though denied, they all stared, breaking into excited murmurs. Horemheb whispered, You also carry the royal bloodline?" I nodded, my voice firm. "That is right. My blood is as red as the Pharaoh's, but the throne rejected me, and now I will take it back with my own hands." To convince them, I raised a dagger engraved with the sigil of Seth and cut my palm. My blood dripped onto the sand. Instantly, the sand trembled, then shifted into a small serpent that slithered away. Rahotep stumbled back, trembling. This is forbidden magic." I sneered. "Forbidden magic? No, this is true power. While you bowed to the light, I embraced the darkness, and the darkness has answered my call. Horemheb slammed his sword on the ground. "If it is true that you have the Pharaoh's blood and this power, I will follow you." One by one they knelt, swearing their allegiance. That night we performed the first blood ritual. A slave was bound, his blood drained into a bronze bowl and poured over a stone stele engraved with the Pharaoh's name. I recited the ancient invocation, "Seth, O Lord of Chaos, bear witness. Here is blood, here is soul. Grant us the strength to shatter the light of Ra." The torches went out. Black smoke rose, coiling into the form of a colossal serpent with blazing red eyes. My allies prostrated themselves, trembling uncontrollably. I smiled. Within the smoke I heard a whisper, "My son, advance." From that day on, the discontented began to work for me in secret. Horemheb moved loyal soldiers closer to Memphis. Rahotep hid gold and silver in preparation for the coup. Mentu whispered tales of ill omens to the people, sowing seeds of unrest. And me? I still sat beside the Pharaoh, still offered him his restorative elixirs, still smiled as Imhotep recited the scriptures. But in the shadows, my allies and I had planted the seeds of rebellion. One night I stood before them, raising my dagger, letting the blood drip. "You do not follow me out of loyalty, but out of ambition. I do not require your loyalty. I only need you to remember, once the throne changes hands, the Pharaoh's blood will reign. My blood." Horemheb roared, "Blood calls to blood. We will follow you." The shout echoed through the tomb like the drumming that heralds death. From a rejected bastard son, I had become the leader of a conspiracy. From the darkness, I had ignited the flame of rebellion. I am Ankh-Sutekh. The Pharaoh's blood in me screams, and I will answer it with blood, the blood of the very throne of Egypt. That night the moon did not shine. The desert wind hissed through every crevice of stone, like the sigh of thousand-year-old mummies. That night, the throne of Egypt trembled, because the very sorcerer the Pharaoh trusted most, I, had led the rebels into the tomb and begun a ritual unlike any other, a night of betrayal. In his royal chambers, the Pharaoh slept soundly. He had drunk the restorative tonic I offered, his eyes peacefully closed, completely unaware that in his very dreams the darkness had already begun to creep in. I stood there watching him sleep. That face, the face that shared my blood yet had never once called me son. I bowed my head and whispered, "Sleep, father. You will never again wake to see the sun as you did before. For when the sun rises, the throne will have a new master." I smiled, then turned my back and left the palace. Outside, my co-conspirators were waiting. We moved silently through the dark corridors, carrying torches wrapped in resin-soaked cloth. The sound of our footsteps echoed, like the beating of a funeral drum. The entrance to the tomb was at the base of a small, overlooked pyramid. The guards were all Horemheb's men, so no one stopped us. We descended deep down the cold stone steps, to the chamber where I had carved the marks of Seth. The torches burned crimson, reflecting the images of serpents carved on the walls. Rahotep trembled, but I turned to him and said quietly, "Afraid. This is the path to power. Those who fear are unworthy of the throne." He clenched his teeth and nodded. In the center of the chamber was a large stone altar, upon which I had prepared everything: a dagger, a bronze bowl, and a talisman engraved with the sigil of Seth. A slave was bound to it, his eyes wide with terror. I took the dagger and cut him, letting his blood flow into the bowl. My allies stepped back afraid, but I raised the bowl of blood high, my voice echoing through the chamber. "O Seth, Lord of Chaos, we offer you blood, we offer you soul. Grant us the strength to shatter the light of Ra, to devour Horus, to erase the Pharaoh's name from history." The torches sputtered out. Only black smoke rose, swirling into the form of a colossal serpent. The serpent opened its mouth, breathing out a cold vapor that made everyone shiver. Horemheb prostrated himself, shouting, "It is an omen! Seth has heard us!" Rahotep and Mentu also fell to their knees, bowing and stammering in terror. I looked at them and sneered. You are right to kneel, but not before Ra, but before the darkness." I raised the dagger and carved the Pharaoh's name, my own father's name, onto the stone altar in blood. From this moment, the light will be extinguished. The throne will belong to the rejected one. One by one, my co-conspirators placed their hands on the blood, swearing their loyalty to me. Their oaths echoed like the drums of war. Horemheb promised to bring his soldiers to my side when the day of the coup arrived. Rahotep promised to open the treasury to finance the new regime. Mentu promised to spread false omens to convince the people that Ra had abandoned the Pharaoh. I looked at them, laughing silently to myself. They thought they were allies, but they were merely tools. When the throne was mine, their blood too would be an offering to Seth. The ritual ended. I sat on the stone altar watching the smoke serpent slowly dissipate. In the wind, I heard a whisper. "My son, tonight is only the beginning. When the blood moon rises, you will swallow the sun." Seth's words made my heart burn. I felt power surging through me. My eyes grew sharper, my hands trembled with excitement. I whispered in reply, "Yes, Father, that day will come, and the throne will belong to the true bloodline, the blood that was rejected." That night I led the rebels into the tomb, offered blood, and swore betrayal. That night the Pharaoh slept peacefully, unaware that death was crawling beneath his bed. I am Ankh-Sutekh. Tonight I betray, and when the sun rises, there will be no light left on the throne of Egypt. There are silent nights, and there are nights that echo for 1,000 years. That night, I believed I was ready to swallow the sun. But the light never dies quietly. It fights back, it resists. And I, Ankh-Sutekh, for the first time, tasted failure. On the night of the ritual, my allies and I gathered in the tomb. Blood flowed, fires burned, and the calls to Seth echoed. The darkness swirled around me, lifting me up as if I were a god. I raised the blood-stained dagger and roared, "Seth, my father, come! The throne trembles, and I will seize it from the light." A crimson flame erupted. The black smoke billowed high, forming a colossal arm that reached for the stone ceiling. My co-conspirators knelt, cheering, believing victory was within their grasp. But at that very moment, a shout echoed from the entrance. "Stop, Ankh-Sutekh!" I spun around. There stood Imhotep in his white robes, holding a staff of light carved with the symbol of Ra. Behind him were the sorcerers of light, carrying golden torches and jars of sacred water. The light flared, dispelling a portion of the black smoke. My allies panicked, some stumbling backward in fear. I bellowed, "Imhotep, you dare interfere?" He pointed his staff directly at me. "You have betrayed the Pharaoh and the gods. Tonight your darkness will be extinguished." I slammed my dagger onto the altar and summoned the darkness. The black smoke swirled, forming a colossal serpent's head that lunged toward Imhotep. He raised his staff, and light erupted from it like a sun, turning the serpent to ash. The explosion resounded through the chamber, and stones rained down from the ceiling. The sorcerers of light began chanting in unison. Beams of light shot forth, but I raised my hand, calling the black smoke to shield me. Light and darkness collided, detonating in a violent vortex of wind that knocked my allies to the ground. At first I was stronger. The darkness obeyed my call. I laughed aloud. "You have the light, Imhotep, but I have Seth, and Seth will crush your Ra." As I was pressing my attack, I suddenly felt a sharp pain flare in my back. A cold blade had pierced straight through my shoulder. Blood poured out and the black smoke shrieked. I turned. The one holding the sword was Mentu, the minor priest I had trusted. But the sword he held was no ordinary sword. It was the divine sword of Horus, glowing with a golden light. Mentu looked at me and whispered, "I have been watching you for a long time. You cannot defeat the light." Then he ripped the sword out, and my blood sprayed across the altar. The power of Seth within me shrieked, but it was suppressed by the sword's light, like fire doused by water. Seeing me wounded, my co-conspirators panicked. Horemheb, the one who swore a blood oath, shouted, "No, we cannot win! Run!" Instantly, he and his soldiers fled, abandoning me. Rahotep also threw down the blood bowl, crying out as he ran after them. In a single moment, from an army of rebels, I was left with only a few trembling figures kneeling on the ground. I screamed, "Cowards! You swore a blood oath to me. You swore allegiance to Seth." But my words were drowned out by the sound of their retreating footsteps. Imhotep advanced, the light from his staff illuminating the entire chamber. "Do you see now, Ankh-Sutekh? Darkness is but an illusion. Light is eternal." I roared, calling upon the black smoke, but I had lost too much blood and my strength was failing. The serpent of darkness was now just a tiny shadow, torn apart by the light. Imhotep raised his staff high and recited the hymn of Ra. A blinding light shot forth, striking me in the chest. My entire body felt as if it were on fire. The black smoke shrieked and then vanished. I collapsed, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But in my heart, I was still screaming, "No, I am the blood of the Pharaoh. The throne is mine. Seth, do not abandon me." That night the darkness lost. Betrayed by my own accomplices, struck down by a divine sword, I, the one who thought he would swallow the sun, collapsed in my own tomb. I am Ankh-Sutekh, the bearer of darkness, torn apart by the light. I am not dead. I am merely waiting. For the darkness never truly vanishes. It only waits for the day of its return. I once dreamed of the day I would stand in the middle of the court, with everyone kneeling and calling me Pharaoh. But that dream turned into a nightmare. I did indeed stand in the great hall of Memphis, not as a king, but as a criminal, bound in chains, with scornful gazes raining down on me like daggers. When I collapsed in the tomb, the soldiers loyal to Imhotep stormed in and bound me tightly. My blood flowed freely, and the power of Seth within me had faded. I was dragged through the palace corridors, my bare feet stained with sand and blood. The whispers of the people could be heard from beyond the gates. "That's the traitorous sorcerer. He wanted to kill the Pharaoh. He followed Seth." Those whispers pierced my heart more painfully than the chains. In the great hall of Memphis, the Pharaoh sat majestically on his throne. Beside him was Imhotep, his white robes shining brightly. The court officials stood in 2 rows, looking at me as they would a caged beast. The Pharaoh's voice was grave. "Ankh-Sutekh, you were once a trusted sorcerer. You sat near the throne. You drank wine with me. Why did you betray me?" I lifted my head and let out a dry laugh, blood trickling from the corner of my mouth. "Because I am your blood, your bastard son, and you denied me." The entire court broke into an uproar. Many covered their mouths, whispering. The Pharaoh flinched, a flicker of sorrow in his eyes. But then he gripped the arms of his throne and growled, "You are not my son. You are merely a vessel for Seth." Imhotep stepped forward, his voice booming like thunder. "O Pharaoh, O officials of the court, here is my proof. Ankh-Sutekh used forbidden magic. He murdered to offer blood to Seth, and he conspired to seize the throne. Here is the dagger engraved with the sigil of Seth. Here is the tomb where he swore his betrayal. Here is the blood of the slaves he sacrificed. Not only did he betray his king, he betrayed Ra himself and all of Egypt." Every word he spoke was like a knife plunging into my chest. The officials roared, "Execute him! Burn him alive! Do not let the darkness defile Memphis." I stood tall, my chains clanking. I stared directly at the Pharaoh, refusing to bow my head. "You can kill me, but you cannot erase my blood. The same blood that flows in your veins flows in mine. You call me a traitor, but I am merely the shadow of your rejection. This throne one day will sink into darkness again, and on that day you will remember my name." Imhotep shouted, "Silence! The light will always triumph over the darkness." I let out a hoarse laugh. Light only exists because there is darkness. Without me, you would never be called a hero. The Pharaoh rose to his feet. The entire hall fell dead silent. He raised his hand, his voice echoing, "Ankh-Sutekh the traitor. You dared to defy the throne, dared to defy Ra. Your sentence is this, to die in the dust, your spirit to be sealed away, never to be reborn." I screamed, "No, You cannot erase me. I am your blood." But the guards were already dragging me away. They took me out into the desert and bound me to a stone pillar. The sun burned, the sand scorched. The priests of light chanted hymns, drawing sealing sigils in a circle around me. Imhotep raised his staff of light, placed it on my forehead, and declared, "The darkness will be buried. Let his spirit dissolve into the wind." The light pierced my body. My blood boiled, and black smoke poured from my eyes and mouth. I screamed, a scream that echoed across the entire desert, and then I collapsed. My body was buried by the sands. My spirit was sealed in a deep tomb. The court of Egypt hailed Imhotep as a hero and praised the Pharaoh for securing his throne. But in the deep darkness, I still whisper, "I am Ankh-Sutekh, the rejected one, the bearer of darkness. You can kill me, but you cannot kill the darkness. It will wait, just as I am waiting."